Okay guys, so we have less frequent training versus more frequent training. I grouped the less frequent training, like hitting a single muscle a day and hitting a single group a day, into bro splits. I grouped the more frequent training, like push-pull legs and full body, together and called it full body. So if you have a training routine that's kind of in the middle, if it's closer to bro splits, then it's less frequent. If it's closer to the full body, then it's more frequent. And first off, we're talking about muscle size and hypertrophy, so a bro split probably wouldn't be the best for strength. Also know that each training split has its pros and cons, and everyone responds differently, guys. So the only way to know what works best for you is to try them all out. Training for almost 6 years naturally, I got up to 30 BMI. That's considered obese, not even overweight for my height to weight ratio, with around 6 to 7% body fat too. And deadlifts and squats are in the 400s for me, with the exception of bench. I've also did that with a pretty bad diet too, because I'm in college and I can't afford to eat good foods right now. I'd sure as hell love to go cook some chicken or some fish right now, but I had to build up my physique with just cereal and protein powder. Anyways, I hit one single muscle a day in the gym, like a 3 to 4 hour glute day, 3 to 4 hour calf day, and so on. I don't hit that muscle again for 2 weeks. In researching online, I found out that Mike Mentzer did the same routine. Mike Mentzer was the guy that competed against Arnold and had a pretty good physique considering the drugs were nowhere near as developed as the ones today. So to start comparing these two routines, let's first look at volume. So if volume is the amount of reps or work you do, everyone's total workload or total volume is going to be about the same at the end of the week. Think of the muscle like an object in a video game for a second. You can either be the guy who puts in 5 hit points to a muscle a day, or the guy who puts in 35 hit points to a muscle weekly. At the end of the week, both muscles have accumulated the same amount of hit points or total volume. So your volume can end up being the same across any routine. Now let's look at intensity. Exercise intensity seems to be higher with a bro split when referring to intensity as the energy expended per muscle, or how hard an exercise feels. It probably feels more intense because you're having to work the same muscle for hours straight while it really fatigues. There's an inverse relationship here. What the bro split is lacking though is frequency. But I'm going to explain why a lower frequency and a longer rest period can be a good thing. There's something called the repetitive bout effect, where the body's response to a stimulus decreases with frequency of a similar exercise. For example, let's look at the people who smoke marijuana. People who smoke marijuana for the first time can get really high, and the people who have been smoking for a while need more marijuana to feel the same effects. It's because their cannabinoid receptors have adapted and became desensitized over time. The same goes for the pluripotent stem cells in the muscles. We can reset the androgen receptors on these cells to be more sensitive to testosterone. We can do this by taking a longer hiatus, like in a bro split. Something else we can reset is our mTOR, or mammalian target of rapamycin. mTOR is a type of enzyme called a kinase that is responsible for cell growth. There's the first phase of protein synthesis called DNA transcription, and the second phase called RNA translation, which is what mTOR is responsible for. mTOR responds to growth factors like IGF-1 and IGF-2, so once again, we can reset things like this after a hiatus. One way I could see someone advocating for a full body is by saying there's the nucleus overload theory that states that the more frequent you train a muscle, the more likely the muscle is to become multinucleated. And a multinucleated cell can make the cell more sensitive to growth. But the truth about multinucleated muscle cells is that each myonucleus can oversee a certain volume of sarcoplasm, or its own myonuclear domain. Once a cell is hypertrophied enough, it needs to add more nuclei to cover that area of the sarcoplasm. So that's something that really comes with size/time. That's also what's responsible for the muscle memory, because it never seems to go away. The last pro I have for bro splits is that you can concentrate on your weaknesses a little more. By spending all day on a single muscle and being able to hit every single different exercise for that muscle, you can tell which exercises really worked and which ones didn't. The biggest con I have for bro splits is that you got to have a high pain tolerance, because you're going to be in a lot of pain. You got to do 2 weeks worth of exercises in one day. I remained sore in each muscle until a few days before I hit it again, so that's like being sore for a week and a half for each muscle. I told you guys how I can't walk or drive right for over a week. I have to use a mouth guard at night to bite down on for the pain. But obviously no one has to push as hard as I do. Another con is that some exercise days can run into each other like chest and shoulders, but you can just order the routine in a way that they just don't. So we have bro splits with about the same volume, arguably more intensity, and less frequency, which can be a good thing as long as you have a high pain tolerance.